you need 1 minute, we can give you 1 minute to just change the mind and then start the panel discussion. Let me share my screen while you have these minutes, I promise. Can you see my screen? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Several screens at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, several. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
one do you see? The
now it's okay.
Which one do you see? The one or the two?
The two.
Okay, then I have to
You should
change.
switch to the other screen.
I have to say yes, yes. I don't remember how to switch. Okay, it's the same.
It's the same.
Yeah, it's the same. Let me. Now, that's good.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so let's go to start to the second activity this morning. Thank you all of you to be here on Saturday morning after a very long day yesterday, and we will go with the panel discussion, the third panel discussion about integrating the real world in the COVID-19 landscape. So this is a very practical panel, and I hope most of you, all of you, participate. So the topics we are going to discuss are on the screen. You have the virtual field trips. We have been a couple of presentations with virtual field trips, and I think that more of us, not me, not in my case, but in other cases, has experiences on field trips, which is very important and interesting topic. We are going to talk about enhancing commercial awareness, employability, and embedding opportunities for personal and professional development. This is another very important issue now. Managing industry inputs, industry coaching and mentoring, and graduate recruitment activities. This morning we have heard different presentations covering different topics of these topics. So a good moment for the debate. So we are happy to have 5 very experienced people on this type of issues. We have Éamonn Darcy from Henley Business School, Reading University. We have Laura Gabrielli from the University of Venezia. We have Deborah Levy. Please thank Deborah for stay here in a very long morning. Graeme Newell as well, and Michael White. So I don't want to spend more time, and the procedure is like we saw yesterday. I'm going to give 8 minutes for each presenter to express their opinion about these topics. And then we can have like a 15-20 minutes for a debate with the people attending the session. And the procedure also is the same. You can send the questions through the chat, or you can ask me for speak directly or give the intervention directly. So let me stop my sharing, and then let me give the floor to Éamonn. Let me stop sharing here. Éamonn Darcy, please.
Okay, thank you, Paloma. Again, I'll try to keep to 8 minutes, so I'll do my best. In terms of this particular topic, I mean, really what I want to talk about this morning is our experiences at Reading, particularly in terms of delivering what is in normal terms, quite a complex capstone module, but delivering it all online. Now, when the pandemic hit, we were quite lucky. We were on the second last week of the spring term. So we covered most of the teaching elements, and we went online for about a week and a half. So that worked okay. It was very rushed in a lot of cases, and a lot of us were not very familiar with the technology. I think that reflected a lot of the debates yesterday in terms of people finding their way. But my biggest problem for the MSc Real Estate, we have a module which normally lasts 6 weeks. It's a group module, so it's a group work module. It normally starts the middle of May, ends the beginning of June. And The module basically is 3 pieces of work. There's a field trip, European field trip. There's an industry challenge where the students work for an industry partner on a piece of work. They go off the industry partner and do their presentation. And we have a strategy game, which we've talked about at these seminars before, which has been developed with my colleague, Jörg Bernhardt, in Switzerland. So these are quite interactive activities, particularly the field trip and also the game. So our big challenge was, with about 6 weeks notice to do this, was to try and bring these 3 elements online. Now, originally last year, our planned European field trip was to Istanbul, and we were already working with our colleague Graeme at the Istanbul Technical University to deliver a program. The last trip I took before lockdown in early March was actually to Istanbul to start putting the program together. So I talked to the industry, I talked to our academic colleagues, so at least they knew we were coming. And so my first task was to try and construct a virtual field trip. So we worked with the colleagues in the industry, and indeed Graeme and his colleagues in the university, to provide roughly about 16 different inputs, which were pre-recorded. We didn't do anything live because at that stage we were slightly worried about doing things live. So I interviewed several people in the market. Several people in the market gave presentations, recorded. Graeme and his colleagues again inputted on the academic side. So we produced this. We produced a very extensive resource base for the students to support them through the field trip. And we didn't change the project very much. The project, in a normal year, they go to the market, they have to find 3 different investment opportunities. We changed a little bit. We reduced it to 2. We also gave them a bit more choice this year. Instead of being assigned a particular investment style, the only thing we assigned this year was the property sector they were looking at, and then they had to choose 2 out of 3 basically. So they had to produce an investment which was core, value added, or opportunistic, and they had to produce 2 investments from a choice of 3. So they produce either 1 core and 1 opportunistic, or 1 value added, 1 opportunistic. So they had to pick 2 investment styles, basically, is what I'm trying to say, from their choice. And again, we ran more groups. Normally we run groups of about 10 students. There's a total of 204 students taking this module, so it's a very large module. So this year we reduced the number of students to 6 in each of the groups. We ran 34 groups of 6 for the whole 6 weeks. The field trip was the first exercise. We used Blackboard Collaborate. We used the group rooms, and I echo what was said before about using platforms and group rooms. The group rooms work very well for that particular purpose. There's peer group evaluation as well on this module, just to tie into some of the issues other colleagues have raised this morning. One thing we did differently this year is we ran a sort of boot camp in terms of working remotely. As a group work, yes, but also working remotely as a group. And that was really successful. So in the first 2 days of the module, we put in place this boot camp. We worked with my colleagues at Henley careers to do that. And at the end of that 2 days, each team had to produce a team profile. And we used various mechanisms. I'm sure some of you have come across the Belvin 6 hats and things like that, basically. So we used that. So each group then put out on Blackboard, basically, its team profile, so people knew who was in the group. And that worked very well to bond the teams to start with. And then they were into the field trip project. In many ways, and again, I've seen other colleagues suggest this morning, the quality of the work we got back was actually better than the real thing. The students, of course, all wanted to go to Istanbul, and they were very disappointed they couldn't go. But bizarrely, the work we got back was probably better quality. We didn't have the sort of virtual tour techniques, but again, we used Google Street View, which is available for Istanbul, to identify the buildings concerned. And again, as I said, we had significant input from the industry in Istanbul and from our colleagues at the Istanbul Technical University, which helped. I don't think without that input, we could have pulled it off in the way we did. And the feedback from the students was that it was way better than they expected, basically. Yes, it wasn't the real thing, but given where they were at that point in time, it was much better. The other feedback, interestingly, by working as a group for 6 weeks, so many students said to us, this is great because we were really lonely before this. The lockdown had been on. This was during lockdown this took place. We also learned a lot about presentations because each of the 3 elements on the module, the field trip, the challenge, and the game all generate presentations. All the presentations came in on MP4. I don't think I'm ever going to go back to listening to real world student presentations again. And this is a huge advantage for the external examiners because they can view the MP4 files and see what the presentation was actually like. So I think interesting experience, but the other two elements, just to say a little bit about them, I focused mainly on the virtual field trip. The other two elements, the industry challenge, what we did, because our industry partners were not in a stage where they could really support us at that point in time. So we recycled projects that we'd used, that the industry had provided in previous years. So that worked. So there was less industry interaction on that. And the other element, basically, the game we brought online very successfully. The game worked online. We discovered a lot about that. And my colleague Jürgen in Switzerland spent a lot of time working that one out. And that was quite successful, well, actually as successful as usual, actually. Again, interesting about working remotely as a group, we had less group conflicts than usual, less free riders. Again, somebody else said that. So, you know, those elements were removed from the process. And also the other thing we did, and I think somebody on this call was helping us as well in this respect, we hired some industry coaches. So each team got an industry coach to help them through the project, because normally in this particular capstone module, there is significant interaction with the industry between the field trip, the challenge, and the game, because normally in the game, the final deliverables are judged by an industry panel. The field trip presentations are judged by an industry panel. So we went to our alumni association, and I also reached out to friends and colleagues in the real estate sector, and we managed to get 34 industry coaches, which supported the students throughout the project work. So again, there are things we might have done slightly differently. I probably would have done more live sessions now that I'm more familiar with live sessions instead of pre-recording all the field trip. But we certainly ran the game live on Blackboard Collaborate, and that worked really well. And my colleague in Switzerland was in Switzerland, I was in the UK, and it all came together. We had no significant tech failures, thankfully. But I think at that stage, we weren't too problematic, because there wasn't much teaching going on at the university. So we may have been the only major group using those platforms at that particular point in time in the summer term to deliver. So that probably helped us a lot. And it's probably one of the reasons we didn't have significant tech failures. But in general, on the 3 pieces of work we got back, they were better than usual. Maybe it's because the students had nothing else to do except work on the work. And we had short deliverables as well. We changed, we got them for the field trip and for the industry challenge to produce a strategy document within 2 days of getting the project, and that helped them get up and running. We get them feedback on that. We provided individual coaching in the group rooms for each of the groups. I had one, I think, horrible day I would describe, where I visited 34 group rooms for about 20 minutes each, but that's the nature of what we ended up doing when we went online. But that was our experience. We had to do it in a very short period of time. And I think the positives, we learned a lot. We had to learn very fast, basically, because we had about a six week lead in on this to deliver it. We could, of course, some students just expected us to say, hey, you're going to be just set a project instead of all of this. But we did our best to deliver the learning outcomes which were in the original module, even though it came at huge time costs to the staff involved. But we learned a lot in the process. So that's what I wanted to contribute on this. There are other things I can contribute later, but that's my main piece, was my experiences of running our capstone module this year.
Thank you very much, Éamonn. There is one question for you, but as I commented before, I prefer to delay all the question at the end. So please don't hesitate to write your question here, because we are going to be one-to-one at the end of the presentation. Next panelist is Laura Gabrielli from Venezia University. Laura, are you ready?
Yeah.
Go
Can
ahead.
you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. And I need to introduce my environment first, because my situation is completely different from my friends and colleague Éamonn. I teach real estate evaluation and real estate investing in architecture course, bachelor level and master level. My property evaluation course has 40 contact hours, and property investment at the master level has 60 contact hours. Both the courses have a theory part, a theoretical part, and a project work. And the bachelor usually has the undergraduate student has a property evaluation, and they are divided in groups of 3 students each group, and they carry on their I think they are a good project, a good level for a student at the 3rd year of the bachelor course. I have more difficulties with the master course, which is the project work is property development with a cash flow analysis and investment analysis, and the students need more interaction with the industry, with the real world. Both of them are architects, so they are not over enthusiastic about the topics, so it's not their core course. Sometimes they are interested, sometimes they are, oh, why do we have to do that? And for years and years I did things that the interaction between industry and real estate courses at university was a key issue. I have 100 students for each course, so it's a big number, which is quite difficult to deal with, especially when you need to interact with industry. You have that big number, and if you ask to a professional expert manager to coach them, they are scared. The other big issue was and is that the university is not investing in field trip or interaction between industry and courses which are not considered core courses. So due to budget restriction, the investments are very limited in this area. And, you know, I'm teaching in Venice, which is not the, it's a very lovely place, but it's very expensive to get there, to find hotel, and in terms of cost, could be very, very difficult to have Italian or foreign speakers to participate. What COVID change? This year, however, was completely different, as the cost were very, very small or zero. We didn't have any cost. I got speakers, people from industry and experts in my lecture, because they didn't have to travel, they didn't have to move from their office, and I can involve them for 1 hour or so, even if they were directors, managers, CEOs of major industry companies. So they, in lieu of losing 1 day to come to Venice and give a speech, they were involved for 1 hour or so into the presentation and seminars. I'm afraid only teaching, only presenting, not coaching students, but it's better than nothing. There were large participation, and which was not possible the last year or the year before in a traditional face-to-face courses. Another aspect that occurred, industry reports came for free. So as the student didn't have the opportunity to go to the library, all industry reports about property price, trends and whatsoever, and digital database were massively implemented. So in my opinion, there was a cost reduction, which give us opportunities that we didn't have before. And this was good. And the third aspect which happened, I usually teach on Friday. And for different reasons, of course, seminars, conferences, meetings, report presentation, and on Friday. What I could do was to register online to these online events, all the classroom on Friday, of course, for free. So I had, for example, 1 hour of theoretical presentation, then all the classroom moved to these online events in Turin, in Milan, and my student had the opportunity to participate without moving from their house, from their apartment, for free, without any cost. And the interaction was again higher because of this opportunity. I really hope that seminars keep on online platform or in two different approaches on face-to-face online, because this gives us the opportunity to interact more and more. In terms of field trip, I never had field trips. As I said before, the university is not investing in that. So I'm very, very interested in the virtual reality. I'm afraid it will be very expensive, but it could improve especially for my master course, improve the perception of the location, even if I'm finger crossed. I hope that we will be out soon and we can travel again soon. Maybe students could also visit their development fields personally, rather than with Google Maps or whatsoever. I had 2 online courses. The first March, May, and June, and October, November, December. 2 online three online courses, and I do think I will have the other next 2 courses, which are in February, March, and April, online as well. We are going to lock down again next week, so I don't think we have the chance to have face-to-face courses. And I think, I'm not saying, oh, again, online courses. I think online courses gave us the opportunity, due to reduction of cost, to interact more with industrial world. And so I'm happy. I don't know when we will be face-to-face again, if I keep on going with this interaction, or if there will be some barriers, but maybe there will be a mix of that, and the collaboration will go on and on again. Thank you for the opportunity of seeing what are you doing around the world, because I took a lot of notes. I hope that I will use them in the future. I didn't know that there were some apps or whatsoever. Okay.
Thank you very much. So in total, you are going to be in lockdown 1 year, so 2 semesters, right?
Yes, the Vice Chancellor is very worried, because the master course is going to be, there's 2 years, master course is going to be, I think they only have 1 semester face-to-face. It's going to be all online for 2 years. It's very, I think they will have online courses next semester as well. The situation in Italy is very bad, and I don't think we have the time to recover and to be in the classroom in the February. I don't think so.
Well, good. So Deborah Levy, it's your time. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Paloma. First of all, I'd really like to thank you for the privilege of giving this session, but also to say that a lot of what we're doing has been covered today already. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a head of Department of Property at the University of Auckland. We've had
Deborah.
New Zealand, for those of you who don't know. For those, we have had issues in that, because COVID has not been that bad in New Zealand. Our biggest problems have actually been going in and out of being online, and the uncertainty of whether we're going to be online or students are going to be there. So that has caused us a lot of angst for the students, just not knowing. we've dealt with them by making sure that there was online content the whole time. So what I want to focus on is really that we do virtual field trips and all the rest that have been covered much better than I can today. I just want to talk about the enhancing commercial awareness and employability, because that really came to our notice when we started right from the beginning. What I call straight away when COVID really hit, with employers out there. I had a Zoom call. It was the first Zoom calls that we had at that time. And we talked about how we were going to make sure we still got that experience of being involved with industry. They couldn't give us as much support because they were wondering what was happening, but they really wanted to. So first things we talked about is to make sure that their LinkedIn profiles are up to date. Online presence. So we brought our property marketing course that I teach, and that was one of the first assignments we gave them. Get your LinkedIn profile up to date. And that has been amazing. The students actually have been out there using it, liaising and getting to know people in the industry purely from that LinkedIn profile. The other thing that we
sorry, Deborah, your connection is becoming weaker. So maybe if you, is worse than before, and we have missed the last thing you have told. Maybe we could, if you shut down your video, maybe we can hear you better.
Yeah, I'll do that. Is that?
I'm not sure. We can hear you.
You can hear me, can you? All right. I don't know when isn't that typical? Just as I talk, it goes. So I tell you.
We have missed you.
Just maybe just leave me. I'll put my data on my phone.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Did you hold on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The network is becoming wake and wake. So this is technical problems. The problem to be far away. Maybe it's the same problem beside me. So,
did you get my message?
Put the date and method. Yeah. I try again. Well, that's okay. We go to the next panelist and then we come back to you if you want, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Okay, let's go ahead with Graeme. Graeme, please, could you take the floor and do your intervention?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paloma. A lot of the comments I'll make aren't necessarily unique to the COVID environment, but I think they highlight some of the issues that are generally applicable around some of those themes that you gave us to think about. Certainly in terms of employability, what we try to do is to bring graduates back and share their experience and journey with the students. They're in very senior positions, but they're more than happy to share the experience, and they do it in an incredibly humble way. There's one lady, Carmel Hourigan, who is a regular presenter for us. She has $26 billion in assets under management, and she just captivates the whole audience, not just the women, but everyone in the audience. They just think, wow, I just want my journey to be like Carmel. It's incredibly empowering. The other thing we try to do is to, given students are going to be interviewed for jobs, is to get them to think about what is their best skill. And I remember there was one guy a couple of years ago that was being interviewed by a major company, and he said, my best skill is I'm really good at spreadsheets. And I looked across at the CEO of the company and his eyes rolled. So when the guy left the room, he said, I have 100 staff in the next room who are also really good at spreadsheets. He said, I don't need 101. So obviously that guy was never going to get the job. And students need to understand the purpose of an interview isn't to see what you know. It's about things like, are you a team player? Are you a cultural fit? Do you add value to the company? So again, we reinforce that with the students, and regularly I'd be talking to the students, particularly in the media, where there might be one of our graduates who's now the CEO of a company, and they've been involved in a big deal. So we'll regularly talk to introduce the class, embedded in the class, talk to them about what was in the media, and the students. To me, students want mentors and they want role models. So in terms of opportunities for professional development, we have a number of scholarships. These are major scholarships with major property companies. Each year we have in excess of $300,000 to make available to the students for the scholarships. They get a bit of money, but the more important thing is they get paid experience, about 2 days a week with these different companies, and they get rotated within the company. Employment isn't guaranteed, but in the overwhelming majority of cases, the student has got employment there. So for us, scholarships are really important. Similarly, when we're managing industry inputs, then obviously guest lectures are really important. And there's a really nice story. There was one guy a couple of years ago where I'd organised for him to do a guest lecture in one of my subjects at 9 o'clock in the morning. In the interim, his REIT was going to be listed on the stock market at 11 o'clock that morning. And I thought, oh, he's just going to cancel. And he said, no, I'm going to do this lecture for you at 9 o'clock. So he went in, he told the students, I can give you 1 hour. At the end of the hour, there's a taxi waiting for me outside. I'm going to list my REIT on the stock market. And he had them totally engrossed for an hour. As soon as the hour was up, he said, sorry, got to go to the stock market. So that'll give you the sense of how a lot of the industry people give a really strong commitment. And when we launch these scholarships, not only do someone from the company attend, but the current holder of the scholarship also attends. And what they say to the students in the room is, a year ago, I was sitting in that chair over there wondering whether I should apply for the scholarship. And I did. It's the best thing I've ever done. So this students about the same age talking to other students about opportunities is incredibly empowering. And quite often the industry relationship isn't so much with the university, it's actually with me. So a lot of it's very, very personal. They're seeing themselves as helping me. So I'll give you a good example. About 2 years ago, I was going in to see one company to negotiate a $500 prize for one of the subjects. Within 1 minute, the CEO of the company, who was one of our graduates, he said, you want a $500 prize? You've got it. Now, he said, now, what else do you want? Within the next 15 minutes, we had negotiated a $50,000 scholarship. So I went in wanting $500 and walked out half an hour later with a $50,000 scholarship. Now, I haven't worked out the internal rate of return on that, but I think it's really good. So these scholarships and prizes are important. The other thing that industry likes is being made an adjunct professor. It costs you absolutely nothing. And what they're getting is recognition that they're a leader, and they put so much into this. So we've got a number of people who are adjunct professors. It's a really clever way of getting people getting leaders involved. Mentoring is really important. and it highlights the importance of networks. Mentors and role models are really important. And the property industry in many countries is changing. A lot of countries now are far more culturally diverse. And what they're trying to do is to embrace that diversity in their staff. And I can remember there was about 2 years ago, there was a student, he was from Nepal. When his parents came to Australia, they did not speak English, but they were typical Asian parents. They said, you can be a doctor, you can be a dentist, you can be a lawyer, that's it. So when he decided to study property, I think there were some very meaningful family discussions. So he was interviewed for this scholarship. And when it came to me to make a comment, I simply said, he has no role models. Who else in Nepal, in Australia, is a leader in the property industry? And the CEO of the company said, straight away, give them the scholarship. So in fact, that year they gave two. He probably would have got the scholarship anyway, but they were so keen to embrace diversity and he's been incredibly successful with one of the big companies. In terms of graduate recruitment, it's very difficult at the moment. What we do is we're quite happy to act as an intermediary. We'll circulate employment information to all of the students, and I've done 2 of those in the last 2 weeks. So that's been really successful. And I think it's important that staff understand how the bigger companies go about the recruitment process. I mean, it's not just about sending your CV. The bigger companies get so many people applying that they have to have filters. So you send in your CV, you do online tests, you do an interview with HR, you go in and do problem solving, you attend a social function, and then you might get interviewed by the property staff. So students need to understand that it's a long process and not just a matter of sending your CV. So I think in the current environment, as I mentioned earlier today, that it's really going to be difficult for students to get employment, given that it's, I think for many of our countries, it's going to be a very slow economic recovery. And I remember I did a video presentation for the property industry about 2 weeks ago. And basically what I said is they need to invest in the future. They need to invest in their staff now. And I know that the times are tough, but if you want to invest in the future, you invest in graduates. And that was very well received. So I think there's a whole lot of things that, well, I don't think any of those are unique to the COVID environment, but a lot of them are really about personal relationships that staff should have with industries, and quite often that relationship is not with the university, it's actually with you and wanting to help you and to help your students. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you very much, Graeme. Very interesting. So I think Deborah is ready. So we go back to Deborah. Go ahead.
Hi, Paloma. Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better.
Oh, good. I've just moved rooms. I was actually in the bedroom and my husband's taken the bed back, so he's very happy. Right. I just want to endorse a lot of what Graeme has said. I mean, it's very similar story, but for those, just in case you didn't catch what I said before, the first thing that we really looked at, we got together with industry right at the beginning of COVID. We discussed where the problems could be and how we could support our students through it to make sure they had good experiences and were employable as possible at the end. And I must admit, I think that as a partnership, and that's what I think Graeme was saying, it's got to be a partnership. As a partnership, we achieved that. So there's a number of things that we've done during COVID, but also had put into place well before. So the one different thing with COVID was the LinkedIn profile. We made sure that every student in the second year filled in a LinkedIn profile, and that really got them online, thinking about who they were, how they wanted to sell themselves, and what skills they had. And I think, as Graeme said, we made them look at themselves. What are their personal skills? Not only their spreadsheet skills and other things, but why? And we made them talk to their friends to say to each other as well, why would I employ you? Why are you great to work with? And those type of things. The next thing we looked at was negotiation skills. The industry was saying that that is one thing that would give them a competitive edge, really. And we brought in, we were very lucky, one of the big firms invited their leading negotiation specialist in and actually taught our students and gave them a session. So they which was a bit of a worry because they started negotiation with me, but they negotiate about assignments and things, but we got there and their negotiation skills certainly improved. The other thing was presentation skills online and in face-to-face. So we brought in a specialist to teach them those and improve their presentation skills. We also run a few mentoring programs. One is called the Buddy Program, where all second year students link with people from industry. Because of COVID, we did it slightly differently. We put them into groups, and so all the big firms took about 20 students each, and we agreed a program to go through. Some of it was online, and we were lucky that we were able to do some of that face-to-face. And that was so they met the students, and from there, quite a few students ended up with jobs at the end of that program. Another thing is our Coffee Mate program, we called it. This again was a buddy program, but it's changed again in that we nearly lost it. And then somebody on our board of advisors, and I'll talk about that very briefly in a minute, came up with the idea, well, I don't mind taking a student out for a coffee, but I can't spend an afternoon with them. So we changed it that people from industry would offer a coffee and the students would negotiate with industry to take them for a coffee. It didn't have to be a coffee, it could have. So this carried on online, but when we could go face to face, that worked again. So a lot of our students, and most students have got at least one or two buddies out there. There's also the business school puts women in business together, and they are mentored that way. Scholarship interviews are, as Graeme said, incredibly important. We have about 20 scholarships or more, and it's not whether you win them, it's really the interview that's really important. And that, again, gets our students out, branding themselves and getting jobs from those. So our graduate recruitment as well, like Graeme, students would approach, companies approach us honestly all the time, and we just send that out generally to our students. But what we found the most effective is getting students responsible for themselves. So we are a small department, 6 or 7 people. We have 400 students. We can't deal with them all ourselves. So our student group, which happens to be called ALES, because it's the Auckland Land Economy Society, you can imagine what they spend a lot of time doing, but it's called ALES, and they actually put together their own individual presentations and things to work with their students, with our students. So when jobs come in now, it goes to the ALES Facebook site, and the jobs are basically filled. We don't even have to be an intermediary now. We are sometimes, but they just take off. And at the moment, because we have a large government house building scheme, there's a lot going into our public sector, but also our economy at the moment, we're very lucky, has bounced back quite quickly, because basically it's pretty normal over here. But as we all know, that could change overnight. So really, it's getting the students really focusing on those soft skills, getting their relationship with industry, getting industry in to teach, getting industry in to set real life assignments. As we've all talked about today, we have a real life assignment. which we bring in people from industry to set for us. They give presentations, and then they actually go out there and give presentations to industry as well. So it's really looking at that relationship and partnership, which I think is adapted for COVID, because they were in the COVID environment, but can be used in any situation. So there's lots more to be said, but I'm sure other people can say it better than I can. So thank you, Paloma.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Thanks for solving your technical problems. We have heard you very well. So our last speaker is Michael White. Michael White, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, Michael. Yes.
Hello. Get the camera to work.
So,
hello.
Good, the camera. Good.
It's
So
working,
your
good.
time. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Okay, so thanks everyone. I understand Deb's situation with IT froze completely. I wasn't even sure I'd be able to speak this morning, so I'm glad I'm being able to come back. I think that I'd like to pick up on probably the soft skills that Deb referred to. These are kind of skills that obviously are difficult to quantify, and I know that in kind of virtual meetings, it's about work in a sense. And it's difficult to quantify the soft skills, I think, in a kind of virtual environment. I'm thinking about field trips in particular. I find it really difficult with virtual field trips personally. When we did field trips, like say to London, for example, we'd have a particular topic for the students. Maybe it's about real estate investment. Maybe it's about what will happen to the market in the next few years. Should you invest in that market? But while we talk to the property companies about that topic and then discuss the kind of issues in the market, kind of similar things to what we do in lectures, but students kind of got it reinforced by professionals, which was quite useful. And I think it was always the case that at the real estate companies in London, they would put on something about graduate recruitment, and the students would meet people who were in their degrees in the past, and they'd see what had happened to them in those companies, and they get some flavour of the kind of work that was done. So that kind of thing is missing when you have a virtual field trip. I think you can talk about it, obviously, but to have that kind of human interaction is something that would be missing, I think, in that situation. So just to have an understanding of what the firm was like, in addition to them providing something that related to the field trip question, just to understand the experiences of their peers who had graduated and worked in those companies, was quite useful in that context. The other thing I was thinking about, I thought it was quite interesting, the presentations on virtual reality. I thought those are really interesting. My question would be, how could you take that and have things that change? Because a lot of the variables in the virtual reality kind of papers seem to be things that were either they happened in a building or they didn't happen. But if you're thinking about investment, how would you take that into consideration, how those variables change in practice? However, I thought it's quite useful because if people are developing virtual reality, you could build up a virtual reality library, which would be quite useful for students across the different real estate societies. Let me just see. Yeah. So in terms of one of the things I've done recently is to sit on a kind of review of final year students' presentations. So they looked at essentially an investment question again, but looking at specific buildings, specific property types, mainly UK-based data that they used. All of that was virtual. They haven't been on campus for that. But the presentations I thought were pretty excellent. I think the quality of the work that they did this year, I think, is better than what I've seen in previous years. But it comes at a time when our final year has got a lot bigger. And that's mainly because a lot of the second year students who would have gone on placement are not going on placement because there are no placements or very few placements. So they're coming into a market where the number of graduates has increased. The postgraduate numbers are similar before compared to last year and this year. So the number of students is increasing, but the job market is a lot worse. So this is a really difficult situation to handle. The university wants us to have a high employment rate for the students, and our school tends to have a relatively high employment rate because of the nature of the degrees that it provides. But it's difficult to see how they'll meet that kind of target the university wants it to meet. And I think the other thing that UK faces is obviously the Brexit effect. And I know that, well, I mean, I think this is pretty horrible, but different politicians have their own ways of looking at this. But that's another factor, and that's a longer term factor. There have been discussions about the impact of COVID on the use of office space, for example, that type of thing, whether it's a short run or longer term effect. There have also been questions about entering public transport to get to work, those kind of issues. Again, maybe a short run effect. But all of these things are impacting on the market in a way that's making it more difficult for a lot of students to find jobs in the marketplace. That's not to say that the firms have completely stopped recruiting. Of course, they haven't done that. And obviously, I've got students who have been at lots of interviews. I don't know if they've got jobs yet, but certainly they've been at lots of interviews. The university does have a lot of people who work for employability. There's an employability team in the school. There are people who are specifically tasked with looking at placements, for example. Obviously, this year that's been more difficult. But there's a lot of work that the university has done to try to help the students into the job market. In terms of the links with industry, there are quite a lot of links with industry. A lot of the people I work with, a lot of the academics have been in industry in the past. And I think that that helps the students because they can give them the flavor of what the industry is like, in addition to those of us who are maybe more academic. We also have a lot of speakers who've come. Virtually is actually quite good for them, obviously, because they don't have to travel. They can give us their time without the extra travel time on top of that. So that's worked quite well, I think, this year. Yeah, the other thing I think was quite interesting, I don't think we do this, is actually talked about scholarships. Deb referred to scholarships and Graeme referred to them as well. That's not something we do, but obviously in the context of certainly in the English system where the fees are quite high, that's something I think we need to look at in more detail. I think that would help our students quite a lot. Thank you, Paloma.
Thank you very much, Michael. So very, very interesting interventions, and I would like to keep of a common idea of all of you that this labor market is becoming worse and much more difficult to students. Students have the result of the mid-year COVID better results or equal to better results, so better students with worse job market, right? So, okay, let's go on with the intervention. I have here several questions. If you want, I can read it, or you can intervene. The first question is was to Éamonn, made from Annie. Annie, do you want to do the questions? Hello, Annie. Oh, can you hear me? Well, the question was, Éamonn, do you think part of the success is that isolated students really looked forward to the course as an opportunity for social interaction?
Yeah, I think I answered it already in the chat. I've been answering the questions as I've been going along.
But you can answer.
I think it was beneficial for them. I think they discovered very quickly that they were getting a personal, benefit out of interacting with 5 other people for a period of 6 weeks when they were in lockdown. Because we did some surveys with the students at the end of the term in terms of, well, in fact, I asked them the same questions that the university asked all the staff members about their experiences of lockdown, just to sort of get a comparison. And the one thing that came out of the word cloud from our students was loneliness. Which again mirrors, I think, what's happening in the real world. I saw a survey of young graduates which said the same thing. But on the positives, if you're looking at the positives, we asked them, was there positives? Nobody mentioned the fact that their tech skills were improving, which was quite surprising. They hadn't obviously thought about the fact that they're all now using Zoom, producing presentations remotely on MP4 files and stuff like that. So that obviously didn't permeate with them. But the positives were all to do with the fact that they didn't have to commute. They could be in their pajamas all day. All this sort of stuff was coming out of the word cloud, rather than the fact that they actually had mastered skill sets of remote working, which might actually serve them very well in the future. And a lot of our groups were also working across different time zones because some of our Chinese students had gone back to China. So they were picking up skills that I think only now they're realizing actually were very valuable to them in that process. So they didn't recognize that tech or their ability to work remotely as part of a group was something that there was a positive out of it. But I think they benefited. I think that the feedback we had was universally very positive on the 3 projects, basically. Of course, they're all disappointed didn't go to Istanbul, and some of them are still hoping the university might refund them some fees because they didn't go to Istanbul, which of course has been a point of contention. But as I said, universities are where they are in terms of funding at the moment. Just one or two other points I didn't pick up on that I kept the sort of focusing on the one module, but I agree with Michael on the graduate situation, graduate employment situation. We have absolutely record numbers of students on our programs this year, much against our expectation. Our international students have fallen in number, but they've been more than replaced by UK students, particularly people changing career. This has been a disruptor for people to think about their careers. The number of people we have are 25, 26 who started out maybe in accounting and finance are now suddenly wanting to do real estate. So that's improved our numbers. Plus, we've picked up quite a few people who were displaced out of the real estate sector, who were in the real estate sector but had no degrees. We always have those type of people, and they again have come back to us. So we've record numbers, but I don't know where the jobs are going to come from because the graduate recruitment round this year is very fragile, I think it's fair to say, with a number of firms who would normally recruit before Christmas only starting the recruitment process now in January. So I think there is going to be a surfeit of graduates, certainly in the UK context, because I think also we had probably more students progressing from undergraduate degrees to master's degrees, because what else could they do this year? As one said to me, we're better off studying. Basically, we have nothing else to do except studying. So that's some of the other issues, I think, which are important. The graduate side, it'll be 2022 or 2023 before some of them will get jobs. I think it's fair to say, because where the market is at the moment. We're conditioning expectations. We keep saying this, that it's not going to be an instant recovery in the marketplace. I want to also echo the points other people made about visiting speakers. It's been a lot easier with visiting speakers. I even had a speaker from JLL in Massachusetts 2 weeks ago talking about co-living. Absolutely no problems, crystal clear connection to Massachusetts. So all work easy. So I'll be piloting more visiting speakers from the US next term on my international markets modules. So as I said, to share experiences. And the other thing, professional development. I mean, this year, partly as conversion, but we ran an online 1-week boot camp on personal and professional development, open to all our incoming students, everybody who had accepted an offer from us, not necessarily have come to us, but we made it available via Blackboard Collaborate. We had very significant take up on it, and it convinced a lot of students, that's probably why we have record numbers, that this was the right choice for them this year to come and study with us for a master's in either real estate or indeed planning, because we ran the personal and professional boot camp. So we've been playing around with a lot of things, and something like that, the business school has looked at what we've done and said, this is great. That's why your conversion is so much better than anybody else in the business school. And next year, I think all the business school students will get some version of, or the incoming students will get some version of an online personal and professional development boot camp. So those are some of the positives coming out of this, basically. And I'm happy to share the schedule for that with anybody, because we're not giving away any great state secrets there, basically.
It could be good. Send you us. And is anyone in the panel that has some comments about these topics or the topics that Éamonn have raised? No. I think we have also a question from Karen Siraki. Karen? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here, Paloma.
Go ahead.
It was just in terms of, everybody gets excited when something is new, but how do you sort of retain that excitement when everybody says, oh, it's the same old thing again? And that was my thing. My question was, how do you keep getting people excited about stuff when it's going to become routine?
Some of you want to answer?
Karen, yeah, I totally agree. And I think for us, because we had 2 very separate lockdowns, I think that, we were doing kind of they had the same experience in both. There was a definite difference in the way they related to them from the first time and the second time. So I think it's a matter of taking the best and learning from it. And I think Éamonn's kind of alluded to that you take the best of what they found exciting and you kind of you incorporate that blended learning. I think it all comes down to blended learning, that you give them a bit of everything, but also be aware that, you know, so for example, for us, we're putting together a whole online course because people are much more open to it than before for people who are already kind of got a degree but are non-cognate. So I think there's a number of things we've learned from it.
Graeme, do you have something to add, or Laura, Michael?
Yeah, I'm sorry, let me get my video working. Is this working? When I started this academic session with postgraduate students, they had already experienced the first part of COVID-19, the first lockdown. So they were all online basically from March until the end of their degrees. And when they came back, some of them really wanted to be back on campus. We have a blended learning approach. And some of them really didn't want to be on campus because they were worried about COVID. So it was quite a difficult situation in a sense, because the university decided we want to provide a blended learning approach to make the experiences close to normal if possible. I think in practice, when I was going in to teach, what I noticed was every other classroom was empty. So in some of the buildings where there are lots of classrooms, they were completely empty. I was the only class happening. And I'd kind of expected some of the smaller classes to be happening as well, but I did not see anybody. In fact, I've not seen any other class in that campus since I started in October. So it's a very weird experience, I think, for the students still. I don't know what they're making of it. We had a situation where one of the students had COVID, so we had to isolate for 2 weeks. Then the teaching went online for those 2 weeks, which was fine. I had some computer workshops in quite a large computer class, and that worked quite well because they were socially distanced. But I think it's, even with a blended learning approach, my experience has been that it's still quite strange. It's still very far away from what it would normally be like.
Can I just add? Sorry, I was just
go ahead.
Blended learning as well, and I think the one thing we discovered with the postgrads, the demand for face-to-face was way bigger than we expected. Basically, Friday week, which is probably the last day of face-to-face teaching, I had 120 students face-to-face.
Oh.
So
what about the distances?
Over 30 hours face-to-face this term, but the demand for the face-to-face after lockdown, and students were saying to it, yeah, we've come on campus because we don't want to get locked down at home ever again, basically, that sort of thing. And they wanted the face-to-face. So that was the surprising thing. I thought we would have more of, we had about, of our MSc cohort this year, which is about 210 students, we have about 65% face-to-face and the other online. And we have students this year who've never set foot in the country. We have students in China who are following the program. We have students in Spain, in parts of continental Europe, and Saudi Arabia who've never come up, but they're functioning perfectly well. But there's been a much greater demand for face-to-face, which was the surprising thing. I don't think we'd have predicted that.
Graeme?
Yes, if I can just add to Éamonn's comments, I agree 100%. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking to students, and while the typical student, everyone says, oh, the students are tech savvy and everything, I don't think that's not what they want. They want the experience, they want to meet with industry people, they want to hear stories, they want to hear about journeys, and a lot of that can't be conveyed by an online format. So most of the students I deal with are very keen to come back to a face-to-face format. I think for many staff, it's been quite difficult. We were very fortunate in that we actually have an online external course for property already. So for us, the transitioning of all of the students to that online format was quite seamless. Stressful, but seamless. But I think when you talk to the students, they really do want that face-to-face experience. And I know blended learning is probably going to be the model going forward, but certainly keeping with 100% online, I don't think it's what staff want, and I don't think it's what the students want either.
Laura or Deborah?
Yeah,
or both?
I would like to partially answer to Karen's question. I try to, next semester will be my third semester online. So I will try to introduce ideas that you suggest me. I will try to introduce something new, but you have to consider that we have a language barrier. When I say to students, oh, go to YouTube and try to find something on real estate and then discuss together, they say, oh, come on, it's in English. I said, okay, everything is in English. But they reply to me, okay, but if I have to learn something about, I don't know, broadcast, it's fine, but about the discounted cash flow analysis in English, tough, is too much for us. So I have also a limited resources that I can use. And you have the word, wherever it comes from UK, from US, from Australia. I have a very thin slice of the cake, and it's difficult to introduce something new every course. It takes time, it's time consuming, but I know that I have to do, because I see my students in this semester are less enthusiastic, are tired. They want face-to-face. It's not possible. In Italy, is absolutely forbidden. And I mean, I try to cope. I try to introduce, as I said yesterday, peer-to-peer evaluation. I try to do whatever I can do. I can keep them alive and kicking, because I cannot go in the classroom and make what they want. They want a face-to-face. And my university is prone to face-to-face teaching. My Vice Chancellor doesn't like online. I think it's something that has to be removed very quickly, as soon as we can get rid of the coronavirus.
Deborah?
You know, I agree with everything everybody said, but I do think students are individuals. Some of them are working, some of them aren't, and I think they like the choice. That's what we found, that some of them really enjoy the online. They can focus better. They you know, they have their own friends that they liaise with anyway, and some of them really want to be in the classroom. So I think the beauty of what COVID and technology has brought us, it's brought us options for students to learn. And that's why I said before the blended learning approach, because you want to get them in the classroom and increase those face-to-face skills. But I think for some of them where maybe even travel to university is expensive, they can't come in every day, or they're working, I think it gives them a flexibility. But as academics and as lecturers, we have to learn how to deal with that and manage that.
Thank you. I think that we are going running out of time, but we have several questions from Herman. So let's go to let Herman to give the questions, and then this is the last one. Herman?
Yeah, thank you, Paloma. Yes, indeed, I posted them in the chat already, but what we hear, and it's also Door Gregoire from KU Leuven who explained me about that. What will be the future? Will we indeed see something like an increased competition between our universities and schools offering real estate courses, that students are going to shop abroad rather than nearby? And second question, what type of hybrid or blended learning will we offer? Because we can consider blended and hybrid as something that we change from time to time, or we add the online course next to the class face-to-face course, but we can also see happening that students will never join the campus anymore, that they stay in Argentina, that they stay instead of moving to the Netherlands. What is the future, and can we facilitate this? Or is the best option then to offer two courses, like a course with face-to-face contacts with its particular education tools, or a course and the course next to a course that has a full online experience like we are living today? So for me, the future is quite challenging, and we are really on a pivot moment, I think, for the moment. Yeah.
Good question. Let's go on. Graeme, for instance, I follow the order I have in my
okay,
screen.
just a general comment for Herman. I think one of the issues that's going to drive whether students wanting to do courses in other countries is whether they're going to be deemed to be international students. So there's a clear difference between local fees and international fees. So that's going to be an issue here. The other aspect is a lot of students would have the expectation to practice locally, and they would need to meet certain professional accreditations, and quite often they've got a very strong local bias. So there's two factors that are probably going to work against the broader issue, but again, it's going to be up to students to make choices.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Éamonn?
Yeah, just to sort of say, I think things will be different. I think we'll definitely have more recorded lectures. That's to echo what Deborah was saying. That's been the big positive. They like the fact they can go back and look at the screencasts again and again. While they want the face-to-face, they also really do like the screencasts in terms of the ability to go through material again. So I think that's something that's here to stay. I'm not sure how we deliver it basically, but going forward, because this year, as part of our blended learning approach, all the core material is screencasted in advance and given to the students a week in advance. And then we have the face-to-face interactive sessions, or indeed online for those who are online, to consolidate the material. But I think that's going to here to stay. In terms of purely online, every university, I think, including ours, is looking at this, suddenly looking at this idea, oh, hey, we could deliver our programs online. Certainly our university is talking possibility of some sort of hybrid model, which we'll have to see whether that happens, whereby maybe we leverage the brands. So maybe we work with a number of local partners globally, basically. So it's a mix, it's a blended learning mix, and that gets around the problem of local accreditations and things like that. And I don't know whether that's going to evolve or not as something which is feasible out of this, but certainly being in a university which certainly was not thinking about going online, suddenly we hear from the relevant pro-vice chancellor that, hey, the university is suddenly looking very seriously at this. So those sort of things, I think, will be part of the changes. I know the other thing we did this year with our incoming students is we normally run about 2 weeks of foundation material, things like introduction to markets, maths for finance, that type of stuff. We packaged it all up and delivered it as screencasts, gave it to the students 2 weeks in advance. Yeah, that was really positive. They all engaged with it. And the feedback we've had from them is, yeah, keep with that basically, except give it to us a month in advance, not 2 weeks in advance. But of course, this is the first time we've done it. So there are some things we won't go back to. I don't think we will be delivering 2 weeks of foundation material face-to-face again. I think it'll be packaged and given to the incoming students prior to arrival. And that was like some of the first projects we've done. I know part of that was my first big project I did on Camtasia, and I'm now much better with Camtasia, so I may need to re-record my London case study, because it's good, but it could be better now that I'm much better with the technology. But I think those sort of things will remain with us. But I think screencasts will be a feature, because I think there'll be an expectation from our full-time students that everything with the core material they can go over again in their own time.
Thank you. Laura?
I want to talk about online shopping. I mean, our courses could be an online shopping in the future, like we buy camera from Hong Kong, we can buy real estate courses from all over the world. But I agree with, I'm agree that students need strong local links. For example, in my courses, there are regulation laws, and property valuation could not be developed without all our urban regulation and housing regulation, for example, that whatsoever. So, and again, language barriers, for example. So I don't know, maybe in 10 years we will talk about online shopping, and we will be against each other because we will compete in the world with our courses. I don't know. I don't know what's the future. I think that it will be a challenge for that, but maybe we will be like Amazon. There will be an Amazon for our real estate courses.
And courses and shopping students. Deborah?
No, I don't think we can read the future, but I think we either take the bull by the horns and we get excited by it, or we get eaten by it. But we've talked a lot in this education conference in past years about sharing courses, about putting things online that we can share. And I think the future could be actually working together, and maybe universities collaborating together on courses. Universities are cutting back on staff. Well, you know, that's going to be inevitable. So we're, rather than try and teach everything ourselves. I mean, we heard this morning Dustin going over to France. Well, maybe they just join courses. I don't know. I think that the models are going to be different. I don't think we can anticipate what they're going to be, but I do think they're different. Why should the top professor in the world, say, I'm not saying any of us or whatever, teaching something, not be teaching in 5 universities online? Isn't that the person that our students want to listen to? But then we need some local knowledge that we run. Maybe, I don't know.
Thanks very much. I think that we are out of time, fully out of time, and we need to stop now. I want to thanks to Éamonn for make a question which serves as a step for the next panel. So I really want to thanks to the panelists this morning, and very great ideas, very good experiences, and sharing with us, with all of us. I think that improved the knowledge transmission among the teachers. So I'm sure that after these days, most of us, me at least, are going to apply new things, new views, new due to this exchange of ideas and experiences. Thank you very much to you all. And then we have to finish this session. And we have another one at 2:30.